In our previous videos, all we've ever talked about is ROA, 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 random order audio. And for good reason, because that's where we're starting. But there's so much more to this concept than just audio. What we've patented is known as the random order digital file format, and with this, audio is only the beginning. I'm talking about movies, advertising, books, gaming, digital education, text-to-speech systems. I've already seen a plethora of situations out in the world where people are attempting to do this, but our format makes it better, faster, simpler. All of our future formats will work on the same concept as ROA with more versatility and feasible content for the creator, and more options and customization for the user or audience. To preface all of my examples, I'd like you to know that these are simply my own personal ideas, and they're just simple ways that I can foresee them being used. They are in no way limited to my examples, and actually the limitation, exactly like ROA, is really only held by creativity and use by the artist, writer, director, or whoever is in charge for coming up with and creating said content. Understanding that this is obviously only capable through digital books like on your Kindle or iPad for instance, let's imagine a typical children's book created in the hopes of teaching through entertainment and enjoyment. It's just a story about little Jimmy going to the farm. So, little Jimmy wakes up. Little Jimmy puts on his red shoes. For time's sake here, we skip ahead and little Jimmy arrives at the farm and sees 3 cows. Now, with that in mind, let's take a step back for a second and consider this book today without the use of random order digital file format. Every time you read this book to your child, it's going to be exactly the same. Little Jimmy puts on red shoes. Little Jimmy sees 3 cows. Now, not only is this monotonous, and Lord knows parents don't really want to read this book every night, 15 nights straight, let alone when your kid won't let you put it down, you have to read it 2 to 3 times in one night. But your child is just memorizing this book, not constantly learning new things. Now, let's consider that we produce our format for books, and the writer and illustrator for this book can now offer as many options as they can imagine, as many as they want to implement, or even create add-on content requested by the readers, or parents in this case, all of which can be acquired after having found out that this is a beloved book. Not only can every page have alternate possibilities with new things to teach your child in the same book, but it can even become age-specific and grow as your child grows. So let's check out a couple of these options. Little Jimmy wakes up in the morning. Little Jimmy puts on blue shoes. Jump ahead. Little Jimmy sees 5 chickens on the farm this time. Let's read it again. Little Sally wakes up. Little Sally puts on pink and black shoes. Little Sally sees 4 goats. Now your child is getting a little older or learning very fast. Little Sally wakes up with messy hair. Little Sally straps on her boots. Little Sally sees 15 chickens out on the green grass as they drive towards the barn. And don't forget that you would be able to choose how simple or original you want it. It doesn't have to be random every time. It doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming to pick what pictures show up for each page. From as simple as sticking with the default option to individually picking each page, or possibly even just put it on no recycle so that you never read the exact same story twice. The writer could even have it be where it's a 6-page book at earliest stage and expand the story to more detail by adding more pages and words. As your child grows, it's now a 20-page book. Other educational purposes might also be something like learning a new language. Whether it's an interactive software like Rosetta Stone or audiobooks, it would be nice not to have to repeat the exact same lesson or test again and again because you didn't get it right the first time. While much of starting a new language is about memorizing words to understand a conversation, that doesn't mean you need to keep seeing and hearing it in the exact same sentence by the same narrator and even the same inflection as just one linear recording. You hear it and read it the same way over and over, and then you can't even recognize it by another person out in the world who has a thicker or varying accent, or in some other sentence structure. You could have a greater grasp and learn it faster by learning the material rather than just memorizing it one specific way, moving on to the next lesson, memorizing it, moving on, and so forth. And it can now be more easily alterable to relay it in many possible versions and outcomes while using the same lesson. Of course, this is just an example of education specifically about learning languages. You can apply this in the same manner to any part of one's education. I know people who have read Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, the Twilight books like 6 or 7 times, the same books, because they just loved those stories and couldn't get enough. After said writer finishes their series, they could go back and weave side stories that didn't exist. For those rereading these books in anticipation of a new sequel coming soon, or for those feeling sad that a series has reached its end, now it doesn't have to be over. The author can develop those lovable side characters or have characters' dialogue change and alter, or choose a different path because other characters didn't even exist this time around. Have a version where so-and-so dies, or where so-and-so never met this person. It's exciting to know what you're going to read about, but not know exactly how everything will play out. It will still remain that same book and story you've fallen in love with, but can maintain that surprise and curiosity that accompanies enjoyment of a new book. Of course, you need to understand that this is just an option. Stories can be simple, stories can remain unchanged if that's what you want. You don't want the book you just read to ever change and you thought it was perfect just the way it was? That's great. Think the idea of having to choose all these options is just overwhelming? That's fine. You don't have to have any extra content, and even if there is extra content, you don't have to select anything. It can all be set to default content, and you don't have to do a thing. Nothing about this format has to change the way you read your books. However, on the other hand, the books you love can be completely intricate and new for the reader that wants to just have this story continuously unfolding in new dimensions every read-through. That's the brilliance of this format. It's 100% up to what the writer wants to do with his or her content, and it's completely up to the reader to keep it simple and unchanging or choose just how intricate and surprising they want the material. And as another use, with this same ability to create these type of unique variations, even down to the alternate inflections and diverse synonyms, we can bring text-to-speech systems alive. Now let's take random order digital file format into the world of scary movies, and for the sake of this example, we'll just imagine that you enjoy being riveted, surprised, and then flinging popcorn in your neighbor's face because you were leaping from your seat meant it was a good movie. Let's say there's a 10-second period here in this movie where you know the killer is nearby. Like, you could just feel it in your bones that that son of a bitch is waiting right around the corner with his machete, and you're yelling at the screen, What no! Well, don't go in there, you idiot! He's right there! What's wrong with you? And the music builds, and pow, another character missing his head. Now, you've watched this movie 10 times. How likely do you think it's going to be that you're still scared or flying out of your seat with this scenario? Probably not likely, and why should you be? You know what's coming. With the use of random order digital file format, you could never know when this character is going to get whacked. With music, camera angles, and different takes all now being individually alterable options for the director, he or she could have the music build and build and build, but he doesn't pop out. Now he does. Or the camera angle is different this time, and you don't hear any music at all, but there he is. And there could be even just 10 different versions of the scenario, and when put on random, you could never know when it's coming. You think the camera angle gave it away, but it's the same angle, same music build, but it's a different cut or edit. Maybe he really doesn't pop out at all this time, and now that means he'll be somewhere else. And there's 5 places this character has a possibility of making the cut somewhere else throughout this movie. Or this movie's going to end where he lives this time. The possibilities are truly endless. Find one version that's your favorite? Want the movie to be exactly the same every single time? That's a possibility too. There's also a use for simple videos, not necessarily always full-blown movies. I've actually seen people attempt this pretty ingeniously, I might add, but I've seen YouTube videos where people have you choose the way a video plays out, and they peg points in the video where you can click and jump to another YouTube video or even just a later point of this same video that starts the choice you made. Like, I want to see what happens in this video when we choose him running through the door instead of jumping out of the window. It's like a jimmy-rigged version of our format. With our format, as the viewer, you would not have to keep selecting points every time they arrive. You could pick them all before even starting the video. You could swiftly save and or load set versions, and you could have options be random, and for the creator, the setup process could also be a lot smoother and faster. And this video example takes me to advertising. It's also something I've seen done before, and I won't say the company or brand because I can't quite remember with certainty just who it was, and I don't want it to cause any conflicts, but it was a cleaning wipe. The commercial ad had several situations where the beginning was always the same. The narrator begins his pitch, and then the wife returns home and sets her stuff down only to look up in horror. The next scene has many different outcomes. One where the husband is sawing or doing some sort of manly craftsmanship right there on the counter, throwing sawdust everywhere. And another one where he's changing the baby's dirty diaper right there on top of the kitchen counter. And then there's a third variation I've seen, but I kind of forget what it was. Suffice to say, this kitchen counter needed a good scrubbing, and the commercial always ends with their product cleaning up a generic counter not specific to what we just saw. And sometimes a commercial ended right there, and other times it would be an ending specific to the middle part, like the man holding the baby with a smirk on his face after everything is all clean. Now, I've already explained how great a space saver our format can make here, by only recording the middle variation 3 times, the beginning once, the ending as needed. But let's consider time of day this commercial is played, what city or state, and what channel. Let's say a commercial is made for a huge multi-purpose distributor that carries everything from kitchen appliances to children's toys to car parts. Well, if I were this company and I was trying to sell specific things to specific markets, I wouldn't want the version where the camera flying down the car aisle explaining the deals we've got going on for car parts being aired on the Disney Channel at 11 at night. I'd also prefer it that the same commercial, but the version showing off the kitchen appliances would play on the Food Network rather than MTV 15, right? So, in advertising, your #1 goal is to bullseye your target demographic. With the random order digital file format, you don't have to send out a multitude of different video files, not to mention the time saved not having to render this. Basically, same video, 20 different times, or however many variations you'd like to come up with, such as when the ending of your video is for the 17 states your business occupies. In this case, you would have at least 17 unique videos rendered just so that the ending of your video states and displays, visit your local so-and-so shop at these 2 addresses within this city or state. Just render the beginning once. Have an overdub, drop the different text addresses of all your locations at the bottom, render only the ending for as many different places as you need, place them into our encoder, make one RODFF file that has all the possibilities, and the broadcaster doesn't even need to select which one it is. You can have a default preset for that area already set up when you send it out to each place. And this is very similar to another ad I heard a while back when I was listening to a streaming music station. The ad popped up with a man saying, "So-and-so is going to be teaching realty in the Phoenix area during these said dates." And so they probably had like 50 plus audio files like this in the Los Angeles area, in the Las Vegas area. And so this is yet another example of people applying several variations to a seemingly tedious and unnecessary manner. Then our random order digital file format could turn into a breeze while saving tons of time, not to mention space, for everyone. And in the culmination of all the examples and media types I just explained, gaming kind of sits across the broad spectrum, being capable of utilizing RODFF's functions in animations, audio, text, and its advertising. Again, I'm sure I could go on and on with all sorts of examples, but the point is that options really are unlimited, and I'm sure there are people out there that hear all this and come up with ways and uses that we have yet to even consider. Back random order audio to help prove its concept and bring in demand that will enable us the ability to bring all of our random order formats to life. Thank you so much for watching. Random order audio, a new age of options.